Senator from New Hampshire.
Madam President, first off, I want to congratulate the senator from Vermont, and I express my appreciation to his very constructive approach to this issue. His original amendment I had very severe reservations about, but he has sat down, he's worked with members of this side of the aisle, with the chairman of the committee, and with members of the administration and the Fed, and has come up with, I think, an extremely responsible amendment. And it gets to the issues which he's concerned about, which are totally legitimate, which is the question of transparency and making sure that to the fullest extent possible, the American people know what's happening with this very significant agency, which impacts our lives, but we don't really know that much about it, or a lot of Americans don't, but it impacts our lives pretty directly, and that's the Federal Reserve. And Chairman Bernanke, I also wish to congratulate he and his staff for stepping forward and aggressively pursuing a resolution to this issue in a manner which I think will be very positive for both sides. And so I intend to support the senator from Vermont's amendment as amended, and appreciate his offering it and appreciate his responsible effort here. I have, however, deep and severe reservations and strongly oppose the senator from Louisiana's amendment. The issue here isn't transparency any longer with the senator from Louisiana's amendment. The issue is whether or not we have a Federal Reserve which can function and can pursue its primary purpose, which is maintaining the integrity of the currency of the United States. When the Federal Reserve was created back in 1917, there was a huge debate, excuse my voice, I'm getting over a little cold here, but there was a huge debate in this nation, which was raging and had been raging ever since the Great Depressions of 1897 and 1907, about how you managed the currency of this country. And the central figure in that debate was William Jennings Bryan, a man of immense proportions in our history. He was a populist in the extreme. And he believed genuinely that there should be a monetary policy in this country which allowed for free money to be produced, essentially. His Cross of Gold speech was, of course, historic. His view was that basically those who were in control of the government, public elected officials, should have control over the currency. But what had been learned over time was that if you turn control of the currency over to elected officials, the currency becomes at risk, because there is a natural tendency by elected bodies to want to produce money arbitrarily to take care of spending which they deem to be in the public interest. And thanks to the leadership at that time of a number of thoughtful people, including people like Woodrow Wilson, the decision was made to create a separate entity called the Federal Reserve, which would manage the currency of the United States and decide how much money was printed. And the printing presses would be taken away from elected officials. This decision has probably been one of the best decisions we ever made as a nation in order to determine a strong fiscal future and a strong economy, because it has allowed us to have a currency which has basically been protected from the winds of the politics of the day. And that is absolutely critical. It's as important today as it was when the Federal Reserve was created, if not more important today. We are seeing a world where there is a tremendous amount of pressure on the currencies of almost every nation, certainly every developed nation with the exception of a few. And that pressure inevitably leads to populist outrage on occasion, or to just popular decisions which request that the currency be devalued in order to produce what some people see as a better lifestyle, or in order to address concerns that a nation may have. But you can't do that at the whim of elected officials. It is absolutely critical that a currency of a nation be protected from the day-to-day activities of politics. And so we have created this Federal Reserve System, which accomplishes that. At the essence of that system is the Open Market Committee, which decides, essentially, how much money there's going to be in circulation in this country. And we have always felt that that system should have integrity, be kept separate from the political process, that members of Congress shouldn't have the ability, either directly or indirectly, to influence the decision of the printing of in this nation. It's a good decision. And we should not abandon that course of action. And yet, the Vitter Amendment, couched in all sorts of...
Senator from New Hampshire's used the 5 minutes he was yielded.
2, 3, 4 minutes. Senator Shelby has time, too, so we'll be...
I would ask for 4 minutes off of Senator Shelby's time.
Okay, without objection.
The Vitter Amendment, unfortunately, Senator Vitter's amendment, unfortunately, has as its basic purpose the disassembling of this independence. It would basically give the Congress the ability, through the GAO, to go in, and because the GAO is an arm of the Congress, our accounting arm, go in and investigate what happens with the Open Market Committee. That is clearly going to create consequences which would be inappropriate in the decision-making process of the Federal Reserve. It would influence their ability to make decisions in the sense that they would be concerned about Congress coming in and investigating them. It would open up activities which, if they are not done in some level of confidence, inevitably end up disrupting the markets. And so it is absolutely critical that the Congress not be allowed to go into the Open Market Committee and audit that part of the Federal Reserve activity. Absolutely critical if we are going to maintain the integrity of the dollar. Remember, this is about Main Street. You know, whether that dollar you take on Main Street to buy clothing or food or a car, whether that dollar has the value that you think it has, depends entirely on whether or not there is confidence that it's not going to be inflated arbitrarily. And if the political process starts to influence the decisions as to how much money is printed in this country and therefore affect the inflationary value of the dollar, you will see your dollars, as you try to buy things on Main Street, devalued. And if the effect of that will be devastating on your ability as an American citizen to have confidence in the dollars which you earn and what they're going to buy and what they're going to mean when you save them, which is even more important. So we cannot have a system which allows Congress to influence the decisions in this critical area. All the rest of the activity in the Federal Reserve that the Federal Reserve undertakes should be open, should be audited by the Congress, and should be available for public inspection on a regular basis. And essentially what Senator Sanders' amendments does, there's already a lot of audit activity at the Fed, but what it does is expand that and make it even more transparent and more available to the American people. But in this one area, which Congress has specifically by law exempted from review, for the very logical and appropriate reason that we do not want the politics of the day to influence the decision as to the value of our currency, in this one area we need to keep the exception and give the Fed that type of protection. And so I strongly oppose the Vitter Amendment, and I hope that those who are concerned about maintaining the integrity of our currency will also oppose this amendment. Mr. President, I yield the floor.